Welcome back to Tester Scale Workshop. My name is Brett Green, and today we're going to take a look at a sticky subject: glues for plastic models. When most modelers started in the hobby, we probably used something very much like this. This is Tester's tube glue. It's easy to use, just squeeze it out of the tube and it's fairly thick, so it stays where it's put on the model. The disadvantage of tube glue is that because it's thick, it takes a little while to dry, and also there's a risk when you squeeze the parts together that you could squeeze excess glue out from the join. However, it's still very useful for a number of applications, including very small parts that need a thicker glue to keep them in place, and as I say, it's very appropriate for new modelers for the hobby. Once you've moved along a little bit though, you'll probably be using a different type of glue. Here we have Tester's liquid glue. Now, this is much thinner, which means that it dries faster, and also the applicator is much smaller. It comes out through a tiny pinhole, effectively, in the top of the bottle. Let's have a look at how we use this. I have here the wing from an Italeri P.1. What I'm going to do with this is basically run a bead of glue along the wing here like this. I like to, where possible, have a slightly wiggly line. I'll put that down, and I'll just do the same on this wing here. I'm just running a bead along the leading edge and a wiggly line along the trailing edge, which for me, and I'll just sort of scrape that off a little bit. For me, that wiggly line helps to broaden the bond. And what we'll do now is simply wait for a few seconds. I find the glue actually works better when you do wait for a few seconds. It also minimises the risk of squeezing excess out of the join. And we just press the parts together. What I would normally do now is grab a clamp, clamp the part, and I'd grab another couple of clamps and maybe some tape as well to actually hold the part together while it's drying. So it's very simple to use, and it's quite effective for most modelling applications. Now, you'll notice, or you might not have noticed, that I've got the window open here. Ventilation is extremely important when you are using glues. In my case, it's also helpful to know that my wife is out of the house because she doesn't like the smell at all. If you have a sensitivity to the odours and the toxic nature of regular glues, or if you have a family member who is, then you can also use a non-toxic type of glue, which has very similar properties to the standard liquid glue that we just used, but is actually completely non-toxic. So that's definitely worth keeping in mind as well. The other major type of glue that I use in the construction of models is liquid cement. Now, we talked before about the thinner liquid glue, but this, you might be able to see in the bottle, has pretty much the consistency of water. It's very, very thin indeed. The technique for applying this is quite different, and what you'll find is that in the bottle of Tester's glue we have a brush applicator. So the way this works is as follows. I have the fuselage from the Italeri P.1. I simply dip the brush in the glue and I run that lightly along the seam. In fact, if you have a droplet on the end of the glue, on the end of the brush, you can sometimes just put the drop at the top of the seam, and the capillary action will actually drag the glue into the entire seam line and come up with a very strong bond, and very quickly. This is excellent for join lines that are well exposed, like fuselage lines, like wing roots on aircraft.